Joining me on this India Today special broadcast is Professor Andrew Latham, Professor of International Relations and Political Theory. Joins us from the Macalester College. Joining me is Professor Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow at the Observer Research Foundation. Ariel Cohen is a Senior Fellow at the Atlantic Council, joins us live from Washington, D.C. And Mr. Cohen, if I could start with you, what do you make of this tough talk at the White House? One attack launched by President Trump, the other by Vice President J.D. Vance, and President Zelenskyy not ceding an inch.
First of all, I think this is not the way to conduct negotiations. This is a break with every tenet of diplomacy we're aware of, maybe from the 17th or 18th century. And doing this sensitive engagement with the cameras rolling, either it was incompetence or it was done on purpose. Secondly, I advise companies and leaders on strategic communications. I would have advised President Zelenskyy not to engage, not to answer, and whatever he had to say behind closed doors. In an open forum like that, he should have answered the media questions, not engaged with J.D. Vance, who was clearly hostile, and then he kept answering President Trump when the best thing he could have done was to shut up. But more broadly, this is a historic moment in which the United States not only appears to abandon Ukraine, but it appears to enter in a historic confrontation with our European NATO allies and side with Russia, as we saw in the United Nations. Unprecedented political development that raises questions about the future global architecture for the world.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll come to that future global architecture, because is President Trump actually now focusing on China? Is that the big agenda for him? But I'll come to that in the second part of this debate. For the moment, I want to focus, Sushant Sareen, on what happened at the White House, at the Oval Office. And, as Professor Cohen said, this is virtually unprecedented. You cannot, this was virtually like a pincer attack. One side, President Trump, the other side, J.D. Vance. Plain truths being spoken. You don't have men, you don't have material, you're not winning this war. But President Zelenskyy also kept pushing back, not ceding an inch. Was that a mistake?
So, Gaurav, look, it was very clearly extraordinary diplomatic drama of the kinds we've not seen in the past. But I think something like this was to be expected. Look, let's face it, Zelenskyy thought he has this license to say and do anything, to be as obnoxious as he wants to be, as entitled as he deems fit to be. And he expects even people who have no dog in this fight, he expects everybody to come and support him. And if they don't, then he disses them publicly. He's done it, including with our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, right? He's tried to do it. Mr. Modi did not bite the bait and he let it pass. He played it diplomatically. Zelenskyy tried to push the envelope once again in the White House today. Now, some of the points which the Americans are making are very, very clear. This war has reached a stalemate. Now, if you want to break this stalemate, you will have to escalate the conflict to a point which, as President Trump says, you are going to be gambling with a third world war. And the Europeans, again, are full of stuff for everybody else. But what do they bring to the table themselves?
Yes.
Okay. So now, if supposing the Americans are walking out, let's see the Europeans fight this war. Let's see what they have. For example, I was just reading somewhere today, Luxembourg is saying we stand with Ukraine. They have an army of less than 1,000 people. Okay. They are going to stand with Ukraine and do what?
Okay.
This is the same thing with many of these others. They have their own problems. The Americans give them the heft. They give them all the technology, or most of it. The American influence and so I think you need to start listening to the American advice. A lot of what was said
So
today,
they need to start listening to the American advice.
One second, Gaurav, let me just add something. Just one sentence more. Look, I also understand where the Ukrainians are coming from, right?
Yes.
They are in a stalemate situation. They're not winning this war. They have their backs to the wall, and they have their own position. Now, that does not mean that their position is tenable, at least insofar as the war is concerned.
Okay.
And maybe they need to strike a deal, maybe a bad deal, but a deal nevertheless.
Cut your losses is what
If
you're
they have a bad
saying.
deal, then they have nothing.
Okay.